करुणालयं पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। There is no contradiction, because nobody, one may say a fact is mistaken to have the quality of another fact, or a thought is mistaken for another thought. In this manner you have so many definitions, but then one thing is clear, that even if you define the error like this, that is, the rope is mistaken to have the quality of the snake. Anyway, one thing is clear, that quality that you see in the rope, you don't accept it as its own quality. Third, you are differing only in the method of definition. It's a very different thing. What is it? That is all. In this matter, there is no. Whether I mistake the rope for a snake, or I mistake the rope to have the quality of a snake that is elsewhere, it doesn't matter. As long as you accept that the snakeness that you see in the rope doesn't belong to the rope parts. Similarly, the embodiment that you see in yourself doesn't belong to you. The limitation that is seen in oneself doesn't belong to oneself. This much if you accept, then there is no problem. That is why here it says, Nahi spatike lauhitya sankrantim bhuvano vadi vastavikameva spatika lauhitya dharma dharmi bhavam mannate. Page number 21. Line. This is what we are supposed to think. एक लाइन दूसरे लाइन में इस किताब में कोई फर्क ही नहीं, कहीं से भी शुरू करें in any class. In every class you start from anywhere, it is the same. समुद्र में कहीं भी ले लीजिए तो समुद्र का ही पानी, तो दूसरा कोई तालाब का पानी, कोई कुआं का पानी, वो कहीं से भी पकड़ लीजिए, एक ही पानी. Nahi sphatike lauhitya sankrantim bruvana. The one who says, people have agraha. The agraha is, they are very, very particular to say that the color of the flower crosses over to the crystal. Okay. It crosses over to the crystal. That is okay. But your thought that this spatika, if you don't know that this spatika is colorless, it is only a color, it is only assuming the color that belongs to the flower, that is no problem. But then when you see the crystal, you don't see that it is colorless, you consider it to have color. That is an error. say it crosses over to it, reflects in the crystal, that's a phenomenon, that's okay. That's a phenomenon, that's an empirical phenomenon. That has nothing to do with reflection, is not an error. If the sun reflects in the water, that's not an error, that's a phenomenon. वो इसकी इस दुनिया की कुछ रिवाजें हैं. If the sun reflects in the water, that's a phenomenon. If the body changes, that is its nature, that's a phenomenon. That is the nature of the body. But say, I am changing, that is an error. The body changes, that's a phenomenon, and you can't stop it. Phenomena can't be stopped. Phenomenal events can't be stopped. So if the flower reflects its color on the crystal, don't call it an error. It is a phenomenon. It's an event. It is a kind of, phenomenal change. ये भगवान का विभूति है, बस सबसे अच्छी बात है कि तो भगवान का विभूति है. That way you can silence all the scientists. Why do the things which go up and come back? वो तो भगवान की विभूति है बस. A villager would say everything is viभूति. You go about giving all scientific reasons. A villager says तो भगवान का विभूति है. दोनों सही है. वो भी सही है जी. A villager also तो भगवान का ही विभूति है. Why the flower reflects on the crystal, you may give all the reasons. तो कोई बात नहीं जी. Ultimately it means only भगवान की विभूति. But it's not अध्यास. That's what I wanted to. नहीं स्फटिके लौहित्य संक्रांतिं ब्रुवाणः वादी वास्तविकमेव स्फटिक लौहित्ययोः धर्मी भावं मन्यते. Even though he asserts that the redness of a flower crosses over to the crystal, it reflects, he can accept, but he knows that the color that he sees in the crystal doesn't belong to the crystal. It doesn't belong to it. Which means what? Then if somebody thinks it belongs to, if it doesn't belong to the crystal, and if somebody thinks it belongs to the crystal, that's called adhyasa. What belongs to the crystal? If I conclude that it belongs to the crystal, that is called adhyasa. Adhyasa has nothing to do with phenomena. Adhyasa is a fantastic principle, that is an evident reality. If I don't take it as it is, then I find myself taking it differently. Bas. If I don't see the truth as unlimited, if I don't see myself as unlimited, then I see myself as limited. It is not that there has to be a limitation elsewhere for me to bring it and put it in the truth. ऐसा नहीं है. Distortion. In this anadi, therefore, a flower may cast its color upon the crystal, but yet that's not what we mean adhyasa. You are concluding that color belongs to crystal. That. If I know it's a colorless crystal and it's only throwing its shadow on it, then it's not adhyasa. Then it's knowledge. Then you are only living a phenomenon. You are not living adhyasa, you are living only phenomenon. Some event, some phenomenon, some vibhuti. भगवान के एक विभूति है. And similarly, if a person knows that I am not changing, body is changing, but I, the subject, is not changing, that's not possible. The existence of the subject doesn't change, the body changes, etc., etc. One is very clear. Then he is not living adhyasa, he is living phenomenon. That also is a false phenomenon. Matak accept person. Similarly, Apishuddhau Rajata Pratibhasam Vikurvano Vastavikameva Vitte Rajata Rupatam Manyate. And another school of thought says it is the shell that looks like the silver. Even though he has got so many reasons, because the shell is shining, therefore there is a bit of silver in it, and therefore it looks like silver, etc. I may say all those things. They are all going to come. But still, even he, na pishuddha rajata pratibhasam sri kuruvanaha vastavikameva shuddhe rajata rupatam manyate. Even though it looks silver, but he also doesn't refuse to accept. He does accept that silvery quality, that silveriness, that silver is not a part of it. No silver in it. Even though it looks silver, that silver is not a quality of the shell. Even he has to accept. And if it doesn't belong to the shell, and if somebody thinks it is silver, then that is called adhyasa. It's looking like silver is not adhyasa. If the shell looks like silver, is not adhyasa. That is also a phenomenon. That is also a phenomenon. That is also a vibhuti. Bhagwan ka vibhuti. किसी को shell looks silver, किसी को silver looks shell. वो भी भगवान का विभूति. Yes. For a sannyasi, silver looks shell. For a grihastha, shell looks silver. ये भी भगवान का विभूति. Phenomenon. But that's not adhyasa. Adhyasa is to think, to conclude, to live with the definite conclusion. This is silver. That is adhyasa. See the difference between phenomenon and adhyasa. The rope may look like snake, and if I know it is not snake, it only looks like snake. It is not adhyasa. It's a phenomenon. And if I say, no, it is a snake, then it is. See. Rajata pratibhasam sri kurvano vastavikameva shukte rajata rupatam manyate yajjapi K2. But there are some people in this world who are very, they are called duragraha. Duragraha means what? Bade zid. K2 Sathyati. Some of the Vedantis, Mula Vidyavadis are called Sathyativadi. Sathyativadi means, those who accept adhyasa. Some of the Vedantis themselves, Duragraha Vishtaha. Those who accept life is an error, that the embodiment is adhyasa, those who accept, even they make mistakes, some of them make. Even Vedantis make mistakes, he says. How? They are duragraha. Duragraha avishtaha means, they are obsessed with their own zid. Duragraha avishtaha. Avishtaha means avesha. They are extremely obsessed with the idea that the error is nothing but the transformation of the reality for a little time. Rope for a little while transforms and becomes a snake. Just to frighten you, it goes through a little chain. Or some ignorance transforms and becomes They are so particular to read change behind error. They are so particular to imagine some kind of change behind adhyasa because they can't explain anything without change. Change means causation. There is some change because all the scientists explain away everything through causation, and causation implies change. No scientist can explain any phenomenon without taking into account causation. Causation change is a part of causation. And now here even the error, because the habit to explain everything through causation circulates, it lives with the person even when he wants to analyze the truth. The empirical habit of explaining everything through change, through causation. The empirical habit of explaining everything through causation lives on with that person even if he becomes a Brahmajitya. That habit will not leave him. And there again the life he wants to explain away through causation. Embodiment he wants to explain away through causation. Doesn't work. Truth also can be explained away. If we can reach the truth through causation, then every scientist will culminate in knowing the truth. Then Shabda Pramana would not be a Pramana. Your senses and logic is good enough. Inference is good enough. Sense observation is enough. But a scientist will never culminate in knowing the truth. Why? Because the truth can never be explained away. The universe cannot be explained away through causation. And if you can't explain away the universe through causation, it means you can't use the change as you can't use change as explanation. Some change has taken place. In that manner you cannot explain. Similarly, why the rope looks snake? Some change has taken place. What is the change? The ignorance has gone through change and stands there as etc. etc. You can't, they're trying to explain away even every error. They're trying to explain away the error through causation implying change behind. That is called duragraha avishtaha. Extremely obsessed with the idea. Satyadivadinaha duragraha avishtaha shuktika eva. And when they give the example of the shell and the silver, they say the very shuktika, the very shell, rajata akarena, as the rajatam, as the silver, adhyasa kale, at the time of adhyasa, Hari nama te iti vadanti, it undergoes change. They say the shell itself goes through change, it transforms into silver. Even though if that silver is less real, its original identity is the shell, that remains, but temporarily it becomes silver. Harina means they will say, this is very something, very beautiful. Some of the Buddhists have criticized the Mula Vidyavadas. You know, Vedantis were beaten to pulp at one phase of history. Buddhists really laughed at the Vedantis. Do you know why? At that particular phase, they were trying to explain everything, and leaving out the Shankara Bhashyam, they tried to explain everything through causation, change. At that time, some of the very intelligent Buddhists said, what are you talking? You call it Maya, you call it false, and you are imagining a change behind. If the universe is false, then it cannot be the result of change. You call it adhyasa, and then you are imagining, you are positing some kind of change behind. Whether it is change in ignorance or change in the truth, it is not acceptable because change doesn't precede error. Change is not there in the change is not the background of error. There is no change in the background of mistakes. There is a lack of understanding behind error, not change. Some of the Buddhists, very intelligent Buddhists, they were all from some of the very traditional forts of India, like Nagarjuna, etc., from the south. Very, 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 very. They all became Buddhists because, they had certain affinity with Buddha, the Kshatriya, and therefore very intelligent Kshatriyas all became Buddhists. Yes, that is the truth. Because they had affinity, hamara Kshatriya hai, hum bhi Kshatriya hai, wo bhi Kshatriya hai, that kind of headache. Who doesn't understand? Who doesn't understand? Why did all the kings, even this man Ashoka, etc., all they became Buddhists? Why? Because apna Raja, apna she is a Kshatriya, become another cult and we all join it. And these are all biased. These are all cost-based spirituality. Yes, if politics are based on caste, your religion also can be based on caste-based. Who is interested? But talking about the definition of Adhyasa, I am telling you, some of the Vedantis, the mediocre people who left Bhashyam behind, who did not understand the definition of Adhyasa as something that doesn't presuppose any change, they went on saying there is change. Then they were refuted. They were taken to task by some of the intelligent Buddhists. Are you able to follow what I am saying? Why? Because whenever you try to explain away the universe through causation, you will fail. Whenever you try to explain away the truth or this entire universe, to try to explain away the embodiment through causation, you will fail. You will be beaten to pulp. That's why. Yadyapi kechit satyativadinah duragraha avishtaha shuktikayeva rajatakarena adhyasa kale parinamate iti vadanti, even though some people take a strong stand, they are obsessed with the idea that the shell does undergo some temporary change to look like the silver iti duragraha avishtaha manyante, they say the thing. Anyecha, some other people. There are two kinds of the obsessed. The first section of the obsessed and the second avishta. And who are they? Rajata amshopi. Why the shell looks like silver? Because there is a bit of silver in it. Rajata amshopi. Alpiyan thoda hai. ज़्यादा नहीं, थोड़ा. अल्पियां शुक्तिकायां, शुक्तिका में विद्यमानः एव, होते हुए ही, भ्रांति काले, at the time of भ्रांति, प्रतिभासते इति, it appears. So, the very a bit of silver that is there in the shell itself makes it look silver. In this manner, different people explain different things. Tathapi, this author says, but still, sir, te rajata pratibhasa vyatiriktam rajata sattam sadhayatum naiva parayanti. But they can never prove a real silver in the shell. They can never succeed in proving the reality of the silver there. So, band kar dijiye. They can never succeed in proving the reality of the silver. In fact, ultimately even they have to say that silver is not a quality of the shell. Rajatakara parinatihi rajata pratibhaso va bhrantikala matre shakya darshanaha itihi te abhyupagachanti. They all accept. It looks only as long as I am under confusion. Shell looks like silver as long as I don't throw more light on it. Or the shell looks like the silver as long as I don't look at it more closely. That is called Bhrantikala. In that way, if you press them, they will have to understand ultimately that it is just really something looks different, something is concluded differently, only because you don't take a closer look at what is there. That is fine. Agrahanam leads to anyatha grahanam. Not change leads to anyatha grahanam. Are you able to follow? Agrahanam leads to anyatha grahanam. Not change leads to anyatha grahanam. तस्मात् व्यवहारे सदातन सत्वम अनुभवन्त्याः शुक्तिकायाः सकाशात् न्यूनमेव सत्वं रजतस्य लौकिक परमार्थ रजत सत्व विलक्षणमिति तैरपि आश्रयणीयं भवति. Even they have to accept. We are giving them a concession. Okay sir. The shell goes through change and becomes the silver. ठीक है. Or some ignorance of the shell changes and becomes the silver. ठीक है. But is that silver as good as the market silver? Is it as real as the market silver? They say it is less real. It is less real than it is less real means how less? Less real means it is not real like the market silver. It is also not real like the shell. It is not real like any phenomenon, any object in this creation. It is less real than the whole universe. How do you imagine the less real? What is the drishtantam for the less real? Anyway, you are inferring the silver in the shell as less real than, you are inferring that the silver in the shell is less real than the universe. Okay. Less real than the creation. You are inferring it. For that, what is the drishtantam? Are you able to follow? What is it by saying it's less real than the creation? It is not less real, it is unreal. It is not another thing. It is unreal, looking like. And even if you call it as unreal, less real, we don't mind it as long as you understand that it is not real like the shell first. What you call less real than the shell, I call it as unreal. I am giving only concession, please, accepting that definition. If you call it as the silver that you see in the shell, if you look at it as less real than shell, that means it is an error about the shell. Now my simple question is this: if you say it is less real than the shell, then it is an error, it is a distortion about the shell. They will say, no, it is not a distortion, it is a transformation of the shell. They explain it as a phenomenon. That's the problem. That is where we get into little debates. As long as, supposing you take it as less real than shell. I see the silver in the shell, and the silver that I see in the shell is less real than the shell. I don't mind, as long as you explain it as a distortion about it. But if you explain it as a phenomenon, then it's a problem. For a thinking person, it becomes a big problem. For a phenomenon, for a phenomenon to happen, you don't require ignorance about the truth. I don't have to know the law of gravitation to feel it, to feel the phenomenon. Even if I don't know that there is a law of gravitation, and if I fall from the building, I will fall. It doesn't matter, knowing or ignorance, that's not. Even if Newton fell after knowing that there is law of gravitation, if he fell from the tree, he would break his bones. Yes. I don't think really we should see what we call the error. Whether you call it as totally unreal or you call it as less real, pratibhasika satyam, less real than the shell, it doesn't matter at all. The universe is real but less real than Brahman. All this language doesn't bother us as long as you look upon the error as an anyatha grahanam about the reality. It is a mere perception, not phenomenon. But the moment you explain it as a phenomenon, then you get into trouble. That is what Shankaracharya says. You can't explain the adhyasa as a phenomenon. As long as you explain it as a perception, it is anyatha grahanam. I only perceive it as a silver. Then that silver, you define it, you take it as less real than the shell, or totally unreal, or it has got a subjective reality. The shell has got an empirical reality. The silver that I see in it has got subjective reality. You may attribute anything in it. That's immaterial. This universe doesn't have it has empirical reality. The dream has only subjective reality. Rope has empirical reality. Snake has only subjective reality. In this manner, even if you use different words, it doesn't matter as long as you look upon this silver is only a thought about the shell. That it is a silver is only a wrong thought, a wrong conclusion about the shell. As long as it is anyatha grahanam. Similarly, this universe is, as long as one thinks, as long as one appreciates, the universe is not a phenomenon that has evolved from Brahma and through change, etc., etc. There are phenomena in the creation, but creation itself is not a phenomenon. It is a sheer perception about Brahman, a correctable vision about oneself. If this is taken clearly that it is anyatha grahanam, then afterwards you use any language, this universe is not totally unreal, but it is less real than Brahman. It is it has empirical reality. It has vyavaharika satyam. They are all just you don't bother. As long as you don't, in order to explain it away, as long as you don't bring in change behind it. neither change of the truth nor change of anything else. If you say Brahman changes and looks the universe, it is wrong. If you say the ignorance about Brahman changes and looks the universe, then also it is wrong. Are you able to follow this? If you say Brahman changes and looks the universe, you are being wrong. And even ignorance about Brahman changes and becomes the universe, then also you are wrong because you are accepting some kind of change. Then it is a headache. Then it is a big problem. Then it becomes very easy for anyone to refute you. Because change itself implies time. So even before the time came, how can there be the change which involves time? Time itself cannot be the result of change. You see? Time itself cannot be the result of change. You can't say there is change before time began. Time is not a product of change. How do you explain all this? Because it should appeal to the common sense also. Pahle aisa tha, ab aisa hai. That is called change. Aur kuch nahi hai. Because that is how we understand change. Our idea of change is simple. Pahle aisa tha, abhi aisa hai. That means time has to be there. I must have the pratyabhijna. So I must perceive something as belonging to both the past and the present and the future. Then I can say, previously it was a plant, now it is a tree. That is called change. And everything that changes exists inside time, in memory. Now memory itself cannot be a result of change. Time itself cannot be the result of change, and therefore, this if you all can understand very seriously. But whether you call the universe less real or whatever, less real as Vyavaharika Satyam, you call it Mithya or Vyavaharika Satyam, it doesn't matter. Whether you call it Mithya or Vyavaharika Satyam, it doesn't matter. As long as it is understood as Adhyasa. And Adhyasa to be understood not as a result of some kind of change. It is Grahana, it is grasp, it's a vision. Like dream is a vision, not a phenomenon. Rajju Sarpa is a vision. Iti sakashadyonameva sattvam rajadasya laukika paramartha rajadasattva vilakṣhanamiti taihi asheniyam bhavati adrisha pratiti matra sattvam hi mithyatvam uchyate asmaviriti sanya matre vivadaha. They call it as less real, we call it as mithya. What is the silver? Less real than the shell. And what do we call it? Mithya. What do they call the universe? Less real than the Brahman. And we call it as Mithya. कोई बात नहीं जी, इसमें कोई problem नहीं. But if they say the less real than the Brahman, the universe, the less real than Brahman, is a product of change. That is not acceptable. If you call the snake the less real than the rope, we don't mind. You call it the less real, we call it mithya, false. They call embodiment the less real, and we call it as mithya. There is no problem. Sanya matre vivadaha. Sanya matre vivadaha means dispute over name. You call it the less real, we call it the mithya. There is no problem. We can give a concession here. It is not our dhantam, but we can give a concession. But how does that less real come about? If you say that the less real, the silver, the less real than the shell, if you say it is due to change, then it becomes absolutely wrong. That you are not accommodate. You can't accommodate. change as the reason behind adhyasa cannot be accommodated. Describing it as less real can be accommodated. Can be accommodated. Any student, it doesn't matter. It doesn't come in the way of understanding the truth. The less real is a notion about the reality. The less real is a notion about the more reality. The lesser real, the lesser truth is a notion about the greater truth. There is no problem. You call it the lesser truth. I call it as untruth. कोई बात नहीं. समझ में आ रहा है? मुझे आना चाहिए. मुझे नहीं फायदा क्या है? सवेरे 4 बजे उठो, तैयार हो जाओ, इधर आ जाओ, दिमाग गरम करो. If you can grasp even one thought, I tell you a blessing. Life doesn't presuppose anything. That makes it hard. Therefore, even if thousands of scientists break their heads over finding out the reasons of life, they can do it. Through cause. Causation is a part, is a phenomenon in the universe. That very phenomenon of causation is an appearance, is an error in the truth. Causation can be explained away as an error, but the error cannot be explained away as this. Causation can be explained. Why is this causation there? What is this so-called causation? Universe. I think Jagat can be explained. Therefore now I have made it very clear. What you call the universe, the lesser truth or causation includes two things. Accepting the change in the very truth. Accepting the change in something else. Mula Vidyavadis accept change in the ignorance undergoes modification and looks like the universe. Ignorance looks like the universe. Vedanta says Brahman looks like the universe. If you see the shell as silver, your ignorance is not seen as silver. Due to ignorance, the shell looks like silver. Not that one's ignorance looks like, transforms and looks like an individual. Ignorance doesn't stand as an individual. It is the truth that looks like, that stands as an individual. It's so nice to say, Paramatma stands as Jiva. There's no some. You begin the day there with that statement. इन अच्छी तरह से शुरुआत होता है, शुभारंभ होता है. If you begin the day with the thought that I am only a product of ignorance, we are truth viewed wrongly. We are just the whole thing is a product of. Okay. तदेवं सत्यमिथ्यामिथुनीकरणमेव अध्यासः इति लक्षणं सर्वतन्त्रसिद्धान्तः इति सिद्धं. सर्वतन्त्रसिद्धान्तः इति सिद्धं. Therefore, the non non-controversial definition of adhyasa is something that implies no, that involves no causation. It is, even though you use different languages, differentiate adhyasa from the phenomena, differentiate adhyasa from the chain, differentiate adhyasa from causation. Then you have understood adhyasa. What is error? Error means it is not a phenomenon, means it's not happening through any causation. It happens, but not through causation. That is adhyasa. I have a squint eye. I look at the one moon as two moons, knowing very well it is only one moon because of the squint. It makes it look two, that is a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon. The squint eye makes the one moon look. It makes it look two moons. That making it look two moons is a phenomenon. It's a causation. थोड़ा बहुत गड़बड़ हो जाता है. But if I live with the idea that there are two moons, then it is. Thus distinguish between phenomena and adhyasa. Okay ji. Laukika anubhava anusaricha idam lakshanam. This definition. Laukika anubhava anusar. It is in keeping with our empirical experience. It is in keeping with our empirical observation. Laukika anubhava anusaricha idam lakshanam. This definition of it. Because we can only understand the error about the truth in the light of the observable errors about objects. Once we say it is an adhyasa, whether it is adhyasa about the Brahman or adhyasa about Rajju, the nature of adhyasa should be the same. Just as the nature of adhyasa, just as the error about the rope is free from causation, it doesn't involve any causation or change. Similarly, the adhyasa about the truth also should involve no change or causation. That's itna hai. It doesn't mean really the adhyasa about an object is, an error about the object is a different kind of error, and whether you call it Sadi adhyasa or Anadi adhyasa, the nature is the same. That is why it should not be difficult for a student to understand what is the bhranti about the truth, about the self. It should not be difficult for him to understand what is bhranti about the truth if he just observes the local bhrantis, the bhrantis about the objects. In fact, the word bhranti is brought here only to show its dissimilarity with the phenomenon, causation. Otherwise, why? If the stones come back to the earth, it's not a bhranti. It's not a bhranti. If you feel hungry, it is not a bhranti. There is hunger in the body. But if you say that hunger is a quality of my being, that is a bhranti. It is my being. Change is a phenomenon in the body. But that's my being. That is adhyasa. Therefore, what looks like phenomenon is adhyasa about the truth. From the point of view of the sense perception, it is phenomena. Ultimately, it becomes adhyasa. I need to follow this point also. One effort should be to discern between the phenomenon and the adhyasa. The second effort should be even everything that looks like phenomenon fundamentally is the second effort. The first effort is to discern the nature of phenomenon from nature. Second prayatna should be second time you go on your for your vacation, summer vacation. And you do the second effort. What is the second effort? All that looks like phenomenon is also the whole prapancha is. Therefore, seen in the truth. It is seen in the truth. Therefore, every jiva is the truth, seeing himself as a jiva, in the truth, seeing the universe, also in the truth. Nothing is outside that. That is why Bhagavan says, Sarvam Avritya Tishthati. Embracing everything, he is peacefully quiet. He is there, like water embraces all the waves. Therefore, Bhava Adhikarichedam Lakshanam will continue it. Om Purnamaha Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Is the mic reaching everybody? Okay, thank you. Oh Bhagavan.